Hello and welcome back to the Not Your Neurotypical Fitness podcast. And I have got another amazing guest on today. And what is so funny is we were just having a good old yap about the weather, as you do as Brits. And it turns out we're literally not even that far away. We're both up north, which is super exciting. So I've got the amazing Katie on today, and we're going to be chatting around a lot around sort of the mindset, the self-acceptance when it comes to neurodivergent brains and being late diagnosed. And this is ultimately what Katie's an expert on. But Katie, I'm not going to butcher trying to explain what you do and the work you do. In as brief a summary as you can, just explain a little intro as to who you are and the work that you do supporting amazing people with neurodivergent brains.
Yes, okay. So hello, I am Katie Andrews. I am the neurodivergent therapist, what some of you will know me on Instagram. I set up so I'm a therapist, psychotherapist. I set up the neurodivergent therapy space about 5 years ago now, which supports autistic and ADHD clients from a lived experience perspective. I think that's kind of the ethos that I really drive with because I think it's really important that you're working with someone who has lived experience of how your brain works. Not that that will have exactly the same experience, but just to so people don't have to come in and explain how their brain works
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's such a difference, isn't there, between knowing and understanding. I
Yeah,
say that a lot. Like if we can all study things in textbooks and
yeah,
read about things, but actually knowing what it feels like is a
yes.
whole different ball game for sure. So obviously the work you do is amazing, and I'm guessing that's fueled by sort of your own story and your own journey, and obviously, like you've said, their lived
hmm
experience. So what is your sort of journey with neurodivergence? Were you diagnosed younger? Was it something older? Like what was your experience with that?
So I had absolutely no idea I was autistic and ADHD well, my whole life really. And I always knew I was a bit different. I could never fit in properly with group circles, just felt very out of place. Um, and actually, it was my eldest son who was diagnosed with ADHD when he was 10. And even then, when they suggested ADHD, I was like, no, he's not ADHD. I had no awareness about ADHD, but I was completely blind to it. Um, and I just thought, no, that's not it. And like many parents do, they're going through the kind of tick box thing of what your child does, when getting a diagnosis. And I related to a lot of it. So it was ADHD that came into my awareness at first.
Mhm.
Um, and then when I was in my therapy training, I was very aware that I processed emotions very differently to what all of my peers process them. So when you're in therapy training, you have a group process with everyone and you kind of process a lot of your traumas and a lot of your stuff. And I was like, God, no one talks about the internal stuff that goes on for me. No one talks about this. So I must just be weird. I must just be the odd one. There's something wrong with me. And so, and then I had therapy. Obviously, when you're in therapy training, you have to have therapy. And the therapist caused me a lot more damage unintentionally, because she kind of came at it from a neurotypical lens of, you're in control of these challenges that you have. You can change them, all of this stuff. Uh, and then ended up uh, seeing something on TikTok, I think it was about autism in women, and then that was it. I just went down a whole rabbit hole, and I was like, oh my goodness. Fast forward, got the diagnosis, and I think the biggest thing for me was I don't want clients to go through what I went through in therapy and feel even worse than what they felt before they started therapy. And that's kind of how this all came about, really.
Amazing. Amazing. So obviously, like I said, there was no shame, no blame of this therapeutical approach, but we do
No,
know
no.
that quite a lot of approaches, and it's why I see it obviously in the work that I do. There's some absolutely amazing like programs and coaches, but the way that they deliver fitness and nutrition advice can,
Yeah.
well, it's happened to me personally. It made my
Yeah.
relationship with food worse, and I've seen it with clients, and I'm not with intentional harm.
Yeah.
Therapists, coaches, they're wanting to help people, but just so
Yeah. Yeah.
people
Yeah.
can kind of understand that for themselves, like what was it about that experience that potentially actually was more harmful for you rather than being productive and helpful, which is why we seek support, right?
Yeah, I think what it did was made me feel even more abnormal, and I already felt like I wasn't normal, and I
Yes.
felt like there was something wrong with me, and it just made me feel like I was unfixable. There's n no one's going to be able to help me. There's no therapy out there that's going to be able to help me. I just felt it just sent me into a real downward spiral of helplessness and hopelessness, and even more shame, and yeah, it was just a really tough time. And I think that's the damage that can happen with, like you say, any kind of pipping, can we not? Sorry. Um, any kind of process like that, any professional that doesn't have the neuro kind of divergent awareness can unintentionally add layers and layers of shame and trauma onto someone who already has all of that anyway, because they've gone years usually without a diagnosis and not understanding how come their brain works that way.
100%. And like with the whole narrative now, especially when people say, "Oh, everyone's got ADHD," and it was like, but yeah, let's get everyone aware of it if they've got it, because we need to be able to,
Absolutely.
if people
Yeah.
have it and they come for these approaches, they
Yeah.
need to know so they can get the right help. So the work you do, I've had a quick look on like the website and stuff, and it looks really interesting. So what made you go, was it purely your experience that made you go, I want to do something differently? Like when you first wanted to
Yeah.
get into therapy training, did you have like a route that you wanted to go down just out of curiosity, or was it more just, oh,
No.
no, I want to help people in this space?
Yeah, I'd experienced a lot of trauma where, as a young person, and I knew I wanted to help other people work through their trauma. So trauma was definitely something I wanted to work through. I also developed ME, uh, something like 2017, 2018, which really disabled me completely. And the occupational therapist said that was from trauma. So I started researching a lot about how the body processes trauma and what can happen. So that was my focus. Obviously, then when I started realizing I was autistic and ADHD, that's the route I really wanted to go down, just to bring. And also, when I started that, there wasn't really anything out there about
No,
autism and ADHD, especially uh, in girls and women. So that was huge for me.
100%. So if that was like, what did you say, 4 or 5 years ago when you set that up?
Yeah,
Yeah, there
yeah,
was,
yeah.
it wasn't really, I mean, but
It wasn't hardly anything. Yeah.
I got my diagnosis it'll be 3 years? Be 3 years in no, yeah, it's been 2 years now. Time's just
Okay.
all over the place.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
I think it's about 2 years. And even
Okay.
2 years ago, it was still quite like, what is ADHD? What is this?
Yeah,
It's only
yeah.
really now that there's more awareness. And so I can imagine back then that having that space would have been absolutely amazing for people.
Mm,
So when people are coming to you then, because obviously you advertise and market yourself as sort of, support for that, what
hmm.
kind of things do people sort of tend to come to you for? Is it more specific challenges of having neurodivergence that they're aware of? Or is it more, I've got this problem, but I want someone who can help me with it from that neurodivergent lens? Or is it kind of a bit of both?
Uh, I would say it's mainly a lot of people who are exploring autism and ADHD, think they might be or are diagnosed, but also have a lot of trauma,
Mm,
and they want to work through that trauma and come to kind of some place of self-acceptance of who they are and why their brain works the way that it does, and kind of rid that shame. Because I think a lot of people autistic ADHD is we've always been taught autistic people don't feel anything, and actually a lot of people, a lot of autistic people feel things at a really intense level.
mm,
And I think when you don't understand that, you can just have so much shame on you and added trauma about ex how you experience emotions. So a lot of people come through to us to kind of process their whole life really, living as an autistic ADHD person with
mm.
all these layers of trauma. So yeah, it's kind of yeah, and we also get a lot of couples and families who want to learn how to communicate with each other, because
Yeah,
it can be really challenging with all your kind of sensory needs and all the accommodations that you each might need in a family household. So yeah, that's kind of the main part of why people come.
100%. And I do think there's so many like light bulbs that people have when you explore the idea of maybe being neurodivergent or get that diagnosis in terms of like reflections on your life. Like looking back a couple of years ago when I first got that diagnosis, and there were so many things that kind of like made sense and I drew these
Mm.
connections. Maybe having someone to talk to might have actually been really valuable at that moment in time because there
Mm.
were so many things that I was like, that's why that felt that way. That was why that thing was
Yeah.
such a big deal for me.
Yeah.
Because when we say trauma, we always think of big things, don't we? Everyone else thinks of like
Yeah.
big,
The big major
bereavement
trauma.
or
Yeah.
abuse, but actually it can be something so small that plants a
Yeah.
seed. And especially with neurodivergent brains experiencing things so intensely,
Hmm.
small things can like be transformative in
100%.
damaging ways, right? So I'm
Yeah.
sure you see like loads of different stories and stuff, but are there any sort of common patterns or trends that you see with people coming to you, any typical sort of struggles or mental battles, just so we can sort of chat through those and maybe explore them for people to listen to?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, a couple of the really common things that we explore and we get in with our clients is clients who have been had a lot of micro traumas. So a bit like what you were talking then, a lot of micro traumas which kind of build up to, feeling horrendous, and then and then ending up in burnout because they've masked or they've tried to avoid doing this thing that they need to do for stimulation or whatever it is that they need to do. And they've masked themselves their whole life, and then suddenly they can't do the things they used to do anymore, and they don't understand why they can't do those things, and that's essentially burnout. Is because you've literally hidden a huge part of yourself uh, away for so long that that's taken a huge amount of resources from you. You're now in burnout. So a lot of clients we're working through how can we kind of stabilize your energy to get you out of that burnout to and also to become accepting of who you are and kind of take off that mask when it feels safe and when you feel comfortable doing so.
100%. And burnout's quite a common word that's thrown around in the neurodivergent space. And I do think you can argue differently. I think in some ways it's overused a little bit because some people say, oh, feeling a bit tired or, a bit of masking fatigue is burnout. I'm like, no, but true burnout, like, is completely different. So what would you say,
Yeah.
like, are the act because as well, like, on the flip side, I find that a lot of people with neurodivergent brains don't realize they're in burnout until they're like deep in burnout because they don't pick up on
Mm-hmm.
those little signals. So
Hmm.
just for people understanding what kind of are like symptoms or signs that maybe you're approaching this
Yeah.
hardest state of burnout.
So you might have the kind of what I would say are obvious to the outside perspective of burnout. You might be quite irritable, you might be quite tearful, you might your emotions might be up and down, you might feel quite fatigued. They're kind of like quite obvious signs, but really subtle signs might be you don't want to turn up for work. I mean, that's kind of a standard thing, but you don't want to go and see your friends. You don't want to do the things that you actually previously loved to engage in. You don't really want to do them anymore. You've kind of lost the capacity. And I talk about capacity a lot because things that when you're in burnout, your capacity is massively reduced. So, things that you might have been able to hold. Let me give you an example for me this week. Um, so my son was in an accident about a year ago. He's still recovering. And this last week has been a really tough week for him. So when he's struggling, I'm struggling because I obviously don't like seeing him in distress and whatnot. And when that happens, my capacity has massively reduced. I can't then focus. So Wednesday, I couldn't do anything work related because I just couldn't engage my brain no matter how much I tried. I could not engage. So it's looking at your capacity to be able to engage as well. And yeah, just that's what where I would be looking at this those subtle signs of burnout or that you're approaching burnout is where is your capacity? What were you doing last week, last month, last year that you now can't do? Is that because actually you're autistic AD, or ADHD and you realize you were masking and that's why you could do those things? Or is it because you're so fatigued and you are burnt out? That's why you can't do those things.
Yeah. And saying that's actually my brain just gone on loads of reflections there because it's so true. And I think when you're aware of your brain more, you kind of have this really weird, you have these like weird conflicts, don't you? Where it's like, oh, I'm actually noticing I'm like quite burnt out or tired now, but I've done this before, and but it's because you've actually got that awareness and almost like allowing yourself. And I think it's quite hard to almost allow yourself to go, no, actually you are struggling here. When if
Yeah.
you've been driven for so long,
Yeah.
like I remember quite recently I was feeling quite tired with like work output. I was like, why am I feeling like this? I've done way more than this
Mm.
before. It's like because you're
Hmm.
actually understanding it now and
Yeah.
allowing you to not
Yes.
push through it
Yeah,
versus
absolutely.
when you're masking, you just crack the
You
hell
just
on.
ignore, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you ignore your bodily signals. And
Oh,
also, if you struggle with interoception and you don't have those bodily signals, then you don't know, you can't tell the lead up to burnout. So that adds another layer of challenge, I suppose, in kind of
yeah.
recognizing it.
It really does. Like what I try and tell my clients is like I call them pink flags. Like we don't want red flags. We want to find the pink flags first. Like the red flags is like when it's
Mm,
almost too late or
yeah,
we got a
yeah,
problem here. But pink is
yeah.
like, but sometimes, and you might disagree with me on this, I think sometimes you almost have to experience a state of burnout to be able to actually know what your pink flags are. And I'm not telling everyone,
Yeah.
go get burnt out, it's great fun, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't know what they are unless I'd been there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's very similar to when you train as a therapist. In fact, you'll probably have the same. You don't really know what your capacity for clients, how many clients you see a week
Yeah.
is until you've done that many clients and you think, nah, that's too much. I need to reduce my client load. Do you know what I mean?
100%. It's like the whole lived experience thing, isn't it? Like textbook might
Yeah.
say 30 clients a week
Yeah.
is optimal, or
Yeah.
burnout symptoms are this.
Yeah,
But no
yeah.
one tells you like there's no textbook that says burnout symptoms are that you just hate the sight of your dog, right?
Yes. Yeah,
My
yeah.
dog is like my fate. She's my life. I live on my own.
Hmm.
Jazzy is my life. When
Hmm.
I'm close to burnout, everything she does, I hate.
Yeah. Yeah,
Why are
yeah,
you
yeah.
shaking like that? Why are you
Yeah.
eating like that? I'm like,
Yeah.
that's what she does. So
Yeah, yeah,
everything
yeah.
irritates the hell out of me, but that's not in a textbook
Absolutely.
at all, is it? So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's so nuanced, isn't it? Like you say. So it's yeah.
amazing. So obviously you mentioned that like burnout from years and years and years of like micro traumas and masking and things like that. Are there
Mm.
any other sort of common behavioral mindset patterns or trends that you see with the people that come into your world?
I think the yeah, I mean it's kind of like just a whole load of shame and they tend to a lot of clients tend to feel like they are the worst person, they're lazy, they don't do enough, people dislike them. There's a lot of rejection, sensitivity, dysphoria in there, and it's kind of working through all of that. And do you know what? It's incredible. I did a post about this the other day because when you start working with someone and they come in with all of these layers and all of this shame and this trauma and they feel so low. When you've worked with them for, a year, 2 years, however long it takes, and you see them come to the other end, it's like, oh, it's the best feeling in the world because what you see is them when they come in, it's as if they put me as the therapist up here and they put themselves down here. And that's not obviously what we want, but over time, and I literally saw it in one session with a client where she'd been kind of put herself down here and put herself up here this whole time, and then suddenly she just started coming in, and she was an equal to me, and I could feel it, and she could feel it, and it was just an amazing experience to just see her like really come into her own and feel quite confident and content in herself when she actually spent a whole life feeling like less than. Do you know that's huge.
Mm. And where do you think this like massive burden of like shame comes from? Like, where do you kind of like chat about it? Have you seen sort of trends? Because it's really common. I see it in a lot of the people that I work with as well.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is upbringing, and I guess kind of old traditional old generational upbringing of, this is how you behave, this is what you do, and schools add to that as well, and the punishment system or the reward system and all of that kind of it's a conforming kind of system, isn't it? And so
Mm.
when you're taught this is the way you should behave, this is the way you have to be, then all of these little parts to yourself that maybe you don't feel or it doesn't align with you how they're telling you you need to behave, you start to hide them. And so naturally that just adds all of that shame
Mm.
on.
I just years and years and years of different things.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So you talk a lot about like self-acceptance and that as part of removing the shame.
Hmm.
How do you go about that? Because it can be quite a hard thing to do. Obviously, again, people might know on the surface, yeah, just accept yourself and it's
Oh,
great.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
what do you actually do to help people to that point where they actually can go, no, I do accept myself. I understand this is
Hmm.
how I am. And as we know, that brings so much relief,
Yeah.
calm, positive energy, right?
Yeah. Do you know what? This sounds so simple, but it is really the relationship with your client. So building that relationship up and being able to relate. So I will say, and I'll say this to my team, and I say this in tra when I offer training, is if you relate to an experience that one of your clients has, share that with them. You don't have to go into a whole spiel about it, but just to say, I really relate to that feeling. Oh my goodness, if someone did that to me in when I was in therapy, wow, I'd have just felt so much less alone and it would have normalized it a little bit for me. Like I would have been able to be like, okay, I'm not the only one that experiences this, so I'm not abnormal, I'm not weird, I'm not, do you know what I mean? So it is that kind of building that trust up in your relationship with them and offering a bit of yourself to say, yeah, I get you, I hear you, and I really have felt that before. Do you know that for someone to hear is huge when they've gone their whole lives never feeling, and then it's like just working through all of those emotions that come with that, and over time, that is where the self-acceptance comes from.
Amazing. And do you find that self-acceptance is something that really helps people to work through the things that have been holding them back, the struggles, the traumas, because they can look at it through a different lens?
Oh yeah. I mean, if I speak about myself and my own self-acceptance, the limiting beliefs that I had and the internalized beliefs that I had from other people when I was younger just prevented me from doing anything. And learning to accept myself and learning to just be who I am and live how I live. I don't, it's kind of like not that I don't care what people think, but I'm unbothered by people's perception. So if someone has a problem or someone thinks, oh, she's a bit whatever, it just doesn't even, it doesn't bother me. I'm just not. And so that's that part of that self-acceptance where you are um, just content with who you are. And I think that's the kind of key element is that enables you to then just be.
Yeah, agreed. And I like what you said there about being content, because I think when we think of self-acceptance, there can almost be this like narrative or idea that you've got to love yourself. And if
Hmm.
you've come from a deep place of like shame and what's wrong with me, and like, the idea of self-love and really, loving yourself can feel like, well, that's like a
Yeah.
mountain and a half to climb. But just
Yeah.
going from that to that can feel much more accessible. And I think that's what can open up people's mind to actually go, no, that is possible. Whereas I see quite a lot of narratives of like, you should love yourself and love your ADHD and all these things. And it's like, but if you're feeling
Mm-hmm.
really like shameful, like,
Absolutely.
you're just
Yeah.
not going to cop on and you're just not going to do any of the work. Whereas if you
Yeah.
can kind of go, let's desexify it a little bit and go, let's just
Yeah.
be content, because actually so many beautiful things can come from that.
Yeah, and also I think self-acceptance doesn't necessarily mean you love that part of yourself. It means you accept that part of yourself.
You don't have to love
So
it.
yeah, you don't have to love it, you don't have to like it, but you accept it.
Yeah. And again, it's when you can just go, okay, it is what it is. It's the energy shift I find, isn't it? Like
Yeah, yeah,
acceptance
yeah.
is a complete energy shift. It takes it from
Yeah.
stress, pressure, negativity to,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah. It kind of stops you from people pleasing and
Mm,
like feeling like you have to conform in a way that other people do you know?
yeah, because it kind of takes it from like negative to neutral, doesn't it? Really,
Yeah.
that's like the
Yeah,
main
yeah.
thing. Amazing. So, what's kind of the mission that you're on now? Because you've obviously done the most incredible things over the last sort of 5 years. The page has grown. You've got like a team. Did I see like on?
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
awesome. So, what's the mission? Is it, because when I think of impact, a lot of people who have businesses related to neurodivergence, the thing that I tend to see in common is what drives the mission is impact, right?
Mm.
It's
Hmm.
making a difference in whatever capacity that looks like. And for some people, that's depth. So
Hmm.
obviously the work you do is very deep. It's going in depth, individuals, really making a difference to these, a handful of people's lives. And then you've got breadth, which is helping hundreds of thousands of people, but
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
not in as close detail. So what kind of is
Hmm.
the mission that you're on? Is it to stay in the depth? Are you wanting to also do things on a broader scale? I'd love to kind of hear about your own personal mission over the coming years.
Oh God. Well, obviously the depth is always going to be a big part of our mission because it is deep work and it is um yeah, you've got to get deep to be able to do this kind of work. But also I have a Instagram page which is growing, which I was never expecting. And so just to get the kind of messages out there that um well, to help educate people, I suppose, help educate people. Because if I found a page like what mine is, when I was exploring it, I would have felt so much less alone, like there'd have been somewhere to go. And so I suppose the aim is to just normalize what
Yes.
it's like to be autistic and ADHD. And there's loads of people doing that now, and there's some incredible pages out there. But I think from a therapeutic standpoint, um, and also the kind of underneath the mission is I'm human. I'm not this perfect therapist that I experience sensory overwhelm. I experience overwhelming intense emotions just like everybody else does. So that is a real big part of my page, I suppose, and what I give out there is like parts of myself because I don't see how you can connect to someone if you don't relate to them. You've got to be able to, and if I'm just kind of giving this blanket, this is what autism is, this is what ADHD is, and don't give anything of myself, then I can't. Do you know, it's not relatable. Do you know what I
No,
mean?
it's not. It's not at all.
Yeah,
It's showing that human side. Like, of course, we always want to show up, when we're business owners as leaders and authority and show that, we've done this work and look how much it's transformed our lives. But also, yeah, we're not perfect because we're not just
absolutely.
regurgitating textbook
Yeah,
information.
yeah,
We
yeah,
we
yeah,
live and experience this stuff
yeah,
every day. I think the main difference is we show what we're doing about it. Like I always say, look, I still have problems. The difference is what I do about it now. Um,
yeah, 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 yeah.
that's what I want to show people. I still have days where I want to binge. I still have days where I can't be asked to go to the gym.
Absolutely.
But what
Yeah,
am I doing about it now to support myself? And that's what I can show
yeah,
people. I love
yeah.
that. And I'm kind of the same but different in that I do still love working with people closely. Because the closer you work with someone, the more you can really help
Yeah.
and get in. But I think my bigger thing is what I love the fact that neurodivergence is talked about more, but there's certain pockets that aren't spoken about. And a big
Hmm.
personal one for me is the link between ADHD and anorexia. Spoken about quite a lot
Okay.
in
Yeah,
autism, but
yeah,
not on a binge eating spoken about.
yeah.
And that's my history, and that's I've got close family with that history.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
So when I'm
yeah.
talking about like relationships with food and stuff, like yeah, I want to support people with weight loss and health, but I'm also on like a
Hmm.
mission of like I really want more awareness of actually how
Yes.
closely linked they are
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
prevent people from having horrible things like this happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. That feels really powerful. And again, you're bringing your own lived experience to it. Yeah.
100%. So if we were to fast forward 10 years down the line, because if we think about how much things have changed, right, in like well, 5 years for you when you sort of first got started in this, and 2 years from me when I got diagnosed, I've seen so much change in talk, so much more understanding, both good and bad in some respects, around
Hmm.
talks of ADHD and autism and diagnosis. And what would you like to see happen in terms of like a societal change? Because all of these problems that we help with, um, what the work I do, the work you do, even if things there'd still be work for us, but a lot of the big problems are fueled by the fact that awareness isn't great, understanding isn't
Mm.
great, society isn't set up great. What would you like to see different on a societal level to better support people?
I mean, one of my biggest things is schools and how schools work with children. It's like touches me on I get emotional talking about it on so many levels because there's so many children out there that really struggle. Sorry, let me just sort myself out.
Okay,
Um, and just watching how schools just really disable children
mm,
and treat them like punishing them, putting them in isolation, I mean it's like torture. It's horrible.
yeah.
And so I would love to see a complete shift in how schools are run, how schools understand autism and ADHD, how schools understand trauma, because quite often they say they're trauma informed, but they're not. It's like a baseline level.
Yeah.
Um, so that for me would be like, yeah, because I think if we can start young, helping children to understand themselves, I mean, that's like, if we can start there, then as they get to adults, they're going to have so many less issues and less problems than what we've all faced.
Absolutely, because the earlier you start, the less of a problem something is. It's
Yeah.
quite similar in that one of my many missions is I would love proper nutrition education to be delivered in school because it's really
Yes.
not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
in primary
Yeah.
school, it's very much the eat well plate, which is so basic. Secondary school,
Yeah.
I learned how to bake buns and spaghetti bolognese, but I didn't understand the difference between protein and calories and
Yeah.
all this
Yeah.
good
So
stuff.
true.
And I think like you were saying about self-acceptance is empowering. I think baseline education, and you were saying with your pay, you want to educate people, it's empowering. I think a lot of struggles with food will be less if there was more education. So
Yeah.
with you on that, like if we could get that into schools.
All around. Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
also agree on the education system. Like
Yeah.
it's it's hard one, isn't it? Because we know that we have to do things to cater to the masses. Like we're always going to have to do that to be realistic. But like I think there can be definitely shifts and small changes. And even if you say if there's just more education provided and
Hmm.
training to teachers and support,
Yeah.
even that could make a massive difference, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that has been an absolutely incredible chat. Like so many really interesting topics there and some really interesting insights. So obviously, as you said, social media is growing and you're posting on there a lot and sharing some really cool stuff. I'll put it in the description as well, but just for the people, where can people find you? And is there anywhere else that you hang out, like websites or other social platforms? I know you're on Instagram.
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is KT underscore. No, it's not. That's not my Instagram handle at all. My Instagram handle is the neurodivergent therapy. Hang on, what is my Instagram handle? I
I've got
do
it up
this
on my
every
side
time.
notes.
Oh my goodness, I'm not good at selling
It's
myself here.
okay. I'll sell yourself for you. It's
Thank you.
neurodivergent underscore therapist underscore UK.
Thank you. That's the one. Right, okay.
One.
I did this last time on another podcast. And my website is www.neurodivergenttherapyspace.com, and on there is a list of our therapists that are autistic and ADHD and all work with different areas.
Amazing. So yeah, this is, I mean, the page especially, even if you don't feel like you need the counseling support therapy, like it's so interesting the stuff that she posts. So please just go check it out. And obviously, if you are in need and think that that could be beneficial to you, go check her out. Check out her page. Check out her services. She's really nice, so she'll be more than happy to drop you a message back and stuff, I'm sure. But thank you so much for that, Katie. That has been amazing. I really appreciate your time. And for all the listeners, I will see you on the next episode.